Imagine you're trying to craft a miracle story about Jesus, and you're going to pass it off as if it's real. To kick things off, you're going to have Jesus ask one of his followers a question. The story you'll be creating will be about money and food. Now, the big question is, which disciple should be a big part of this story? Hold that question in your mind for just a moment. In John chapter 6, we read that Jesus spent the whole day with the crowd, healing and teaching. Later, he and his disciples slipped away up the mountain seeking a break. However, some in the crowd spotted them, akin to fans glimpsing music performers after a concert or a celebrity in a crowded restaurant. As the crowd approached, Jesus turned to one of his disciples with a question. We read in John 6:5-6. Lifting up his eyes then, and seeing that a large crowd was coming toward him, Jesus said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread so that these people may eat?" He said this to test him, for he himself knew what he would do. Philip? Really? Philip? Philip's not even a big deal in the New Testament. He speaks about 3 times in John's gospel. You might be thinking, why not choose someone more prominent like Peter or John, or heck, Judas Iscariot, who handled the money bag, could make more sense here. But here's a clue. In John 1:44 and 12:21, it mentions that Philip is from Bethsaida. The significance? Well, we only find that out when we flip to Luke's Gospel in chapter 9. At the start of the account about the feeding of the 5,000, we learn something big about Bethsaida. It reads, when the apostles returned, they reported to Jesus what they had done. Then he had took them with him, and they withdrew by themselves to a town called Bethsaida. But the crowds learned about it and followed him. He welcomed them and spoke to them about the kingdom of God and healed those who needed healing. Then the feeding of the 5,000 happens. So according to Luke, who doesn't even mention Philip at all here, the whole event actually happens in Bethsaida, the very town Philip comes from, which we learn in John. Jesus turns to Philip thinking, hey, Philip, you know the area well. You know where we could find some bread. This might also explain why Andrew, who we learn is also from Bethsaida, chimes in. In John 6:9, Andrew tells Jesus, there's a boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what good are they for so many? You could guess that Andrew, being a local, knew the boy, or maybe Jesus directed the question to both Philip and Andrew, who are both from the area. But why Jesus picks Philip in John 6:5 is not directly explained in the text. To figure it out, you really have to play detective and connect the dots from John 6:5, 12:21, and 1:44, and Luke 9:10-17. It's this kind of casual link between stories that you would expect in historical reporting, though it's far more surprising if you're considering it as just a mere fictional story. This is a classic example of an undesigned coincidence. But there's more here in the feeding of the 5,000 story. Interestingly, in Mark's account, he describes the people sitting down in groups on the green grass. Now, it's not that Mark is the only one mentioning people sitting on the grass. Matthew, Luke, and John also note people sitting down. The standout detail here is that Mark specifically says that the grass was green. This catches attention because in Israel, especially in Galilee, the grass is generally brown due to the seasons and a lack of rain. Adding to the intrigue, Mark's gospel mentions in verses 30-31 that, and he said to them, come away by yourselves to a desolate place and rest a while. For many were coming and going, and they had no leisure even to eat. Mark casually mentions the coming and goings of the people in the area during this time, hinting at some serious hustle and bustle. However, he doesn't specify why there's so much busy activity. John's account sheds light on this, however, revealing in chapter 6, verse 4, that now the Passover, the feast of the Jews, was at hand. Well, this explains the large crowd swarming. Furthermore, during the Passover season, which is springtime, there is a brief period when the grass in that area turns green due to increased rainfall. When we connect this seasonal detail with John's information about the Passover festival, it makes sense of Mark's seemingly casual but surprising statements about the grass being green and the constant movement of the people. Now, you might think to yourself, come on, Eric. Seriously, what's the fuss? The grass is green often enough in the Palestine area. It could just be a lucky guess. However, there's more to it than just that. John is the only evangelist explicitly stating that the loaves that Jesus used to feed the 5,000 were barley loaves. Well, why does that matter? Well, Passover comes after the barley harvest. So another piece of the puzzle falls into place. The hustle and bustle of the crowds, the green grass, and the barley loaves all point to it being during Passover. Now this raises a natural question. Wouldn't John just put 2 and 2 together from reading Mark and just add the bit about it being Passover? Well, let's entertain this hypothetical scenario for just a bit. Maybe he did have a copy of Mark's gospel. I don't think that's too far-fetched. So, paying very close attention, John notices the part about the green grass and the large crowds in Mark's account. He thinks, I should add some more details here. Mark left some unexplained nuggets. Then John has a brilliant idea. I know, I'll mention that it was Passover. That would explain why the grass was green and why there was so much hustle and bustle. But in doing so, he completely drops all reference to Mark's other details. While this is hypothetically possible, this scenario seems to be quite a stretch. If John had invented the detail about it being Passover to line up with the crowds in the green grass, it's unlikely that he would have dropped any mention of the many people coming and going and the green grass. It seems more probable that John wrote down that it was around Passover because, well, he remembered that it was indeed around Passover when the feeding happened. Circling back to the Philip puzzle, are we seriously suggesting that the beloved disciple not only had Mark but also had Luke's gospel, read about the feeding miracle in Bethsaida, and then randomly thought, hey, let's connect Philip to Bethsaida in 2 completely different spots? And, as if that's not enough, casually threw in Jesus' question without directly mentioning Bethsaida in the miraculous feeding story. I mean, sure, it's a possibility, but I wouldn't bet the house on it. Again, we need to be careful to not overlook the evidential value of casualness when evaluating historical reliability. How can someone spot such an unintentional agreement when comparing both sources? The key is to look for the casual and unconnected way in which the information is presented in the text, which suggests that it wasn't intentionally fabricated. I hope you're finding this series on undesigned coincidences helpful, and I'll be diving into more examples from the Gospels in future videos, so be sure to subscribe, and thanks for watching.